Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Bulzachelli for Catholic Studies Academy. Today I'll be asking a very important question to which no one really knows the answer. Who are the Nephilim? In chapter 6 of the book of Genesis, we meet the Nephilim, and we find them in the context of the lead up to the story of Noah and the great flood. So here's the passage. When men had begun to be plentiful on the earth, and daughters had been born to them, the sons of God, B'nai Elohim, looking at the daughters of man, saw they were pleasing, so they married as many as they chose. Yahweh said, "My spirit must not forever be disgraced in man, for he is but flesh. His life shall last no more than 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth at that time, and even afterwards, when the sons of God resorted to the daughters of man and had children by them. These are the heroes of days gone by, the famous men." So it seems to me that the closest we're really going to come to an answer to this question is that last line. They're kind of identified. These are the heroes of days gone by, the famous men. Now, how does that lead us to an answer? How does that tell us who actually they are? Well, it would be a mistake to see the Nephilim as the offspring of the union between these sort of sons of God and these women. We don't really know who these sons of God are, right? But I think we can begin to approach an answer if we kind of see the point of the story of the flood. The rudiments of the story of the flood are held in common with other ancient myths about floods and an ark and the gods. But this particular story about the flood is told from within the context of a distinctly Jewish point of view, right? A distinctly Hebrew perspective. What we want to kind of ask is there something going on in the story of the flood that addresses something beneath the obvious point of the text, right? In other words, the story of the flood is talking about how sin entered into the world and spread all over the place. And then God said, well, I got to fix this problem. Let's start over again. So he kind of wipes the earth out, but he preserves this sort of seed for the next, he's going to reseed the world, right? With this one guy in the ark and all these animals that he brought with him. Okay, fine. The story definitely says that. But is there a subtext to the story? I think, yeah, the answer is yes, there is. It seems to me that this particular story is talking in large measure about the freedom of the Hebrew people from the pagan covenant, the various pagan covenants from which they had originally emerged. So in other words, if we remember that Abraham was originally from Ur, right, in Chaldee in the regions of Babylonia, we know that Abraham originally was one of these ancient pagans. And we see in the struggle, right, that the Jewish people experience once they actually even attain the promised land, for them to remain faithful to the covenant that God was making with Abraham and made with Moses, right? They just couldn't seem to stay faithful to this covenant. They had a tendency to keep drifting into paganism. Why was that? Because they were pagans originally, right? I mean, their culture is bound up with the same roots. Genetically speaking, the Jewish people and the Canaanites are the same guys, right? So it's helpful for us to understand this fact. And once we understand it, we begin to see something very interesting about the way the story of Noah and the ark is presented in the book of Genesis. Here it seems that what's being presented to us is the other stories. When men, so imagine, in other words, this is the world that pagans live in, right? This is their kind of mythology. When men had begun to be plentiful in the earth, and daughters had been born to them, the sons of God, looking at the daughters of men, saw they were pleasing, so they married as many as they chose. Yahweh said, so here's God intervening with real faith. Yahweh said, my spirit must not forever be disgraced in man, for he is but flesh. His life shall last no more than 120 years. Now, the Nephilim were on the earth at that time, and even afterwards, when the sons of God resorted to the daughters of man and had children by them. These, the Nephilim, are the heroes of days gone by, the famous men. The Nephilim, in other words, are the heroes of the pagan myths. They're washed away in the flood, never to be seen again. On the other side is a new covenant, a new world, in which man responds to the one true God.